of a downed Apache helicopter are dead. Good evening and welcome to the AFN Evening News. The White House says training in the low-flying helicopters will continue despite the crash, but there's still no word as to when the copters will see combat. Reuters reports the helicopter went down about 1:30 this morning, 50 miles north of Rennes Airport, where the Apaches are deployed for Task Force Hawk. This is the second Apache to go down in less than 2 weeks. Pentagon officials say there have been no initial signs of hostile fire and that the copter probably hit a power line. But the official cause of the crash is still under investigation. They gave us ours, now we might give them theirs. Reuters reports President Clinton has asked Defense Secretary William Cohen to review the status of 2 Yugoslav prisoners of war held by Allied forces. But presidential spokesman Joe Lockhart refused to say whether the review is related to the weekend release of 3 U.S. soldiers by the Yugoslav government. Staff Sergeant Christopher Stone, Staff Sergeant Andrew Ramirez, and Specialist Stephen Gonzalez were released Sunday after being held in Yugoslavia for over a month. Family members of those 3 POWs say their soldiers are looking good, and they are very happy that doctors at Landstuhl Regional Medical Center have given them a generally clean bill of health. USA's Tony Sweeney has details.
Lieutenant Colonel Sharon DeRuvo, Chief of Clinical Nursing, said that the soldiers were in excellent shape and they had continued their physical training during captivity.
But the training that the military has provided them and the discipline they chose to take to follow that training made a difference in their physical and mental well-being. They look good, they feel good.
All the families arrived on Monday and were able to spend some time with their loved ones.
Oh, I couldn't let go. I had to let him go so he could breathe. It was good to see him. He looks really good, really good.
Staff Sergeant Stone received a CAT scan, and according to Colonel Blanton, the reason it was done was because of initial TV images they had seen.
The x-ray did show that he had a fracture of his nasal bone. It was minimally displaced fracture. On a chest x-ray also, we did find 2 healing rib fractures on Sergeant Ramirez, one on the right and one on the left, that are healing very well.
Sergeant Stone's sisters said that their brother and the other 2 soldiers really have no idea of how many people were praying for them and waiting for them to be released.
We told them the yellow ribbons, we told them the prayer vigil that we had at the high school, just different things that have been done in Michigan in general also. And, you know, he's just kind of, they don't believe it. You know, it's hard for them to believe that all this attention has been centered around them.
The Stone family was especially appreciative of how the Army helped them when they needed it.
We actually heard from them on a daily basis, not individually, one of us would hear, or my dad would hear. Somebody would hear something, and it would be relayed through our family.
Every day.
Every day.
And they're looking forward to going home, of course, United States of America with their families, but they're also looking forward to going back and seeing the rest of the soldiers in their unit.
Crane said that there's still a lot to find out about what happened to the soldiers during their captivity, but one thing was certain to him.
They were definitely in Macedonia, I'm convinced.
The true highlight for the day was when all the families and soldiers were reunited. Now these 3 soldiers can start putting their lives back in order. Reporting from the Landstuhl Regional Medical Center, Tony Sweeney, USAR News.
For the president.
The president continues his short tour of Europe. He visited today with troops at Spangdahlem and Ramstein air bases in Germany. President Clinton is expected to spend tonight in Frankfurt and head out tomorrow for a refugee processing center in central Germany. Then it's off to Bonn for meetings with German Chancellor Gerhard Schroeder before he makes the trip back to Washington. It's called the Purple Ramp. Their task is processing everything possible on its way to Operation Allied Force. And that includes cargo all the way to the people. Air Force Sergeant Rolla Sutmuller checks out Ramstein's Joint Mobility Processing Center.
On paper, it's rows and rows of numbers, but outside, in the yard, it's rows and rows of trucks, trailers, and cargo that's moving in and out of the Joint Mobility Processing Center. Air Force cargo, Army cargo, people cargo. Just about anything heading out of Europe into Tirana, Albania has come through this yard.
It's been a tremendous workload for the last 3.5 to 4 weeks.
They call their yard the Purple Ramp. because Air Force and Army work side by side to get the cargo and people out as quickly, efficiently, and painlessly as possible.
We act as a liaison between the Army units deploying and the Air Force. So our job is basically to turn the Air Force requirements into an Army reality.
But cargo is only part of the center's mission. There's the 5,000 plus troops they've processed too. Their passenger holding area has turned into one of the best examples of military family volunteerism. The USO, American Red Cross, and 86 Services Squadron provide free snacks, movies, and more for anyone waiting on their plane.
A lot of the troops, they come in directly from the States. They get off a plane and come in here for several hours and have to wait for a flight, and they may come in the middle of the night, they may come in early in the morning, any time of day. They're coming in and having to wait for flights.
And while they're waiting, the Joint Mobility Crew keeps loading. Staff Sergeant Rolla Settmiller, Air Force News, Ramstein Air Base, Germany.
There's a lot of preparation involved in carrying out those flights. Air Force Sergeant Sandra Brown takes us back to the beginning and the people who got Operations 4 Allied Force really moving.
It all starts with the Transportation Command playing a part in every aspect of a contingency. In Operation Allied Force, it took a coordinated effort between the Air Mobility Command and the Army's Military Traffic Management Command to get the troops and supplies from the east and west coast of the U.S. to European staging areas. At the same time, the Military Sealift Command was preparing fuel, oil, and tanker support to move the muscle by getting fighters on scene.
On the air side, it's everything you see every day. 100 tankers in Europe, 150 air crews, promising to grow every day if you read the headlines. Airlifters bringing the Army over in waves, ammunition over every day, goods and supplies over every day. C-17s in the theater at Ramstein, ferrying back and forth to Tirana, 20 to 25 missions a day, as many as we can stuff into that small airfield. So it's a very, very visible, high-tempo effort for the air folks, especially for the tanker folks, and especially for our pride and joy, the C-17.
At present, all 47 Globemasters and crews are deployed around the world supporting several operations with an astounding 98% reliability rate. Staff Sergeant Sandra Brown, Air Force News, Spangdahlem Air Base, Germany.
That's your late edition. Have a good night.